Greetings, YouTube. As an adult, I don't use my city library all that often. My wife does on occasion. But when I was a kid, I practically lived at my library. It gave me access to thousands of books for free, which is a privilege that I cannot even begin to explain how important it is. Our libraries are one of the very foundations of what I consider to be civilization. I mean, in the summertime when I was, say, in my 12 to 14, 15-year range, it would not be uncommon for me to read an entire novel every single day, weekdays. Whenever the weather wasn't good enough for swimming, I would sit at home and read. And if it was good enough for swimming, I would bring a book with me for when I wasn't swimming. I read a lot. I have read hundreds of novels. And in all that time, I had access to any book available. There were no restrictions on what I could access. And I had moved beyond children's books when I was 8 or 9 and was reading young adult fiction, things like Heinlein, Roddenberry, things like that. Bradbury. Moved beyond kids' books into that, and then very quickly into adult science fiction, fantasy, and eventually into espionage kind of books. Mostly science fiction and fantasy, though, at that age. And no one ever questioned what I read. I have no idea if my parents were concerned about what I read or not. They had their own issues at that time, so maybe it just didn't ping their parental radar. But I'm glad I had access to those books. I cherish those memories, and I defend libraries' rights to stock whatever books they choose. Well, a woman named Tina Harden in Longwood, Florida, has decided that she personally is going to decide what other people can read. It seems that in 2008, her daughter read two books from the Gossip Girl series, a series of books that I really have no interest in and didn't exist when I was at that age. And she was upset because these books contained the topics of sex, drugs, and foul language. Because, of course, no teenage girl in the history of the United States has ever been exposed to sex, drugs, or foul language except for literature. And because she was so upset at this fact, she refused to return the books to the library, keeping them. Even though she has racked up some $85 in fines, which I thought it was illegal to fine someone more than a book was worth, but that's just me. And she's just not going to do it. She's not going to return these books for fear that these books will fall into the hands of more impressionable young children. Won't someone think of the children? Oh no, the children! Yes, that tired old hackneyed cry. Won't someone think of the children? Well, you see, there are people thinking of the children. They're called parents. And you are preventing another parent from deciding if their child should in fact read these books or not. You have become a censor. She actually wants to have the books labeled with warning labels, ratings like movies have them. But the thing is that movies have ratings and they're done by a private entity, the MPAA, which is an evil organization and should be struck down and cease to exist as soon as possible. So adding such an organization to books would be a very bad thing and absurd. Because, again, whatever one person thinks is inappropriate, another person is going to shrug and say, yeah, big deal. And that's probably where I'm going to fall into the camp. I'm very much opposed to censorship of any kind. I think that it is up to the reader to decide for themselves what should or should not be read. And if a parent is so concerned about the content their child is going to access, they themselves should read the book before their child does. And if they're not willing to do that, then step back out of the process. Because you don't get to decide just from looking at a book cover whether it's going to be good or not. So, take command of the situation or accept the situation as it is. And public libraries stock books based on what the community wants to have access to. It's that simple. They cannot please one person, one parent, one family. They have to please the entire community. And these kind of standards vary a great deal. In fact, they vary so much that the libraries don't place any kind of restrictions on these books at all. I don't even know of any libraries that have any kind of restriction like that other than for books that are extremely valuable and rare. And that's because the book itself is of great worth, putting it into the reserve stacks. So yes, I'm opposed to the action this woman has taken, and I hope that a judge makes her produce the book and makes her pay the fine. Or books, I think it's 2 actually. Because this kind of thing should not be stood for. We should not tolerate one private citizen deciding that the entire community cannot access something because they themselves find it offensive. There is no constitutional amendment to say that you are not going to be offended in life. Get used to it. Otherwise, you're going to be really disappointed. I hope this woman's daughter grows up to underappreciate libraries for what they are, to really come to know that the libraries are the very heart of a civilized, open society, and that her mother has taken a step that is going to harm her community and our nation at large. So yes, I oppose this woman. Her actions I find morally reprehensible, and I hope that someone makes her change her ways, though I'm sure that in her head she will always feel that she was justified in always thinking of the children.